Bob the cat was hungry. Not regular hungry, special hungry. The kind of hunger that makes you dream big culinary dreams. Bob's stomach growled, echoing through the quiet kitchen. Bob craved tuna casserole. It was a dish he'd smelled on TV. The aroma seemed to waft through the screen, tantalizing his senses. He could almost taste the creamy, savory goodness. It looked glorious. Bob decided today was casserole day. No more waiting, no more dreaming. Today he would make his culinary dreams come true. He found a cookbook. Big mistake. Words were hard. Pictures? Pictures? He understood. He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning for images of the perfect dish. Bob saw a tuna can. Check! He could already imagine the rich, flaky fish mixing with the other ingredients. He saw noodles. Double check! The noodles would add the perfect texture, a delightful contrast to the creamy sauce. He dragged a chair to the counter. Climbing was hard, but Bob was determined. He could see the counter, his gateway to culinary success. He missed the chair. Thump! Bob was okay. Mostly, onward to tuna casserole. He picked himself up, shaking off the daze. Nothing could stop him now. Bob was on a mission, and nothing, not even a fall, would deter him from his goal. The kitchen was his battlefield, and he was ready to conquer it, one ingredient at a time. The can opener was tricky. Bob batted at it. It swung, then bopped him on the head. Ow, Bob grumbled. But he was a cat on a mission. He finally got the can open. Tuna juice squirted everywhere, mostly on Bob. He licked his paws. Well, he thought, some snacks are free. Next, the noodles. The pot was heavy. Bob pulled a dishcloth. The whole thing crashed down. Noodles rained from the sky. Bob surveyed the damage. This was fine. The kitchen was a disaster zone, with pots and pans strewn everywhere, and ingredients scattered across the countertops. But Bob, ever the optimist, believed he could handle it. After all, how hard could cooking really be? He could totally fix this. With a determined look in his eyes, Bob decided to take charge. He had seen humans do it countless times on TV. It was just a matter of following the steps, right? He scooped noodles with his paws. Some went in the pot, some went elsewhere. The noodles were slippery and hard to manage, but Bob was persistent. He batted at them, trying to get as many as possible into the pot. A few ended up on the floor, but that was okay. He'd clean it up later. The stove was confusing. Bob poked at the knobs. He'd seen his human turn them before, but now they seemed like a puzzle. He turned one, then another, hoping to get the right combination. The stove hissed and clicked, but nothing seemed to happen. He smelled something burning, probably fine. Bob's nose twitched as the scent of something charred filled the air. He glanced around, trying to locate the source. It was probably just a minor setback. He could handle it. He added the tuna and some milk and a dog toy. Oops! Bob was in the zone, grabbing whatever he could find and tossing it into the pot. The tuna seemed like a good idea, and milk was always a safe bet. But the dog toy, that was an accident. He quickly fished it out, hoping no one would notice. Smoke filled the air. The fire alarm blared. Bob coughed. The kitchen was quickly becoming a smoky mess. The fire alarm's piercing sound echoed through the room, and Bob's eyes watered as he tried to see through the haze. This was not going according to plan. This wasn't how it looked on TV. Maybe he should order pizza. Bob sat down, defeated. Cooking was harder than it looked. He had tried his best, but maybe it was time to admit defeat. Pizza delivery was just a phone call away, and it sounded like a much better idea right now. Section 4, the grand finale of failure. Suddenly, the oven door swung open with a creak, releasing a cloud of steam that filled the already chaotic kitchen. A burnt, bubbling mess oozed out, spilling over the edges and onto the floor. The once promising casserole had turned into a culinary catastrophe. It smelled like regret and disappointment, a scent that lingered in the air. Bob's tail twitched nervously as he sniffed the burnt offering, his whiskers twitching in dismay. The smoke alarm wouldn't stop, its relentless screeching. Bob panicked, his ears flattening against his head as the noise grew louder and more insistent. In his frantic state, he knocked over the trash can, sending its contents sprawling across the floor. He raced in circles, his paws slipping on the mess. This was a disaster, a hilarious, furry disaster that seemed to have no end. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the smoke alarm died. Silence fell over the kitchen, broken only by the occasional drip of burnt casserole hitting the floor. Bob looked around at the mess, his eyes wide with a mix of confusion and resignation. The kitchen was a war zone, and he was the lone survivor. Maybe, he thought, casserole is better on TV. With a final, thoughtful twitch of his tail, Bob decided that perhaps some things were best left to the professionals. Section 5. Reflections of a Culinary Calamity. Bob learned a valuable lesson that day. Some things are best left to professionals, or humans. He cleaned himself with his tongue, tuna-flavoured bath again. He went back to the couch. He turned on the TV. There it was again, that beautiful tuna casserole. Next time, Bob vowed, I'm ordering takeout.